Hello and welcome to a millinery hat history video. My name is Ilona, I'm a milliner based in London, and today, with all the elections that have happened this year around the world, I thought we'd look at hats as a way of signalling political allegiances. We're all familiar with the bright red MAGA caps and the direct protest pink pussy hats from the 2016 American election, but did you know hats as political propaganda have been in use since the French Revolution in the 1700s? I'll be looking into the fashion of Georgiana, the Duchess of Devonshire, yes, the one from the Keira Knightley film, American hat wearing at political conventions in the mid-century, and the most recent merch from the UK general election 2024. If you are interested in all things millinery and hat making, please do like and subscribe to help this video reach more people. Now get your polling cards out, pin your ribbons on, and let's get voting. You've probably seen the 2008 period drama The Duchess, starring Keira Knightley as Georgiana, the Duchess of Devonshire. It's a biographical film that charts Georgiana's unhappy marriage, love life, and politics. In the film, as well as in real life, she was an ardent supporter of the Whig Party led by Charles James Fox. His political colours were buff and blue, the colours of Washington's Revolutionary Army in America. Fox was a supporter of American independence, and his Whig policies were anti-monarchy, advocating for liberty against tyranny. So what's all this got to do with hats and fashion? Well, the costuming in the film is brilliant. Here is Georgiana making a political speech wearing a buff and blue ensemble. She's got foxtails on her hat and is wearing a fox muff. It's quite obvious from just looking at her that she wants you to vote for Fox. Now, I don't know if the real Duchess of Devonshire ever wore such an outfit, but I was able to find this satirical cartoon in the British Library depicting her in similar attire. Her dress and hat are buff and blue and are decorated throughout in ribbons and a favour in the same colours. She holds a miniature fox and has foxtails coming out of her hat. Even though she may not have physically worn this outfit, a cartoon depicting her as such would have been circulated to a vast number of people. The French Revolution was a period of political and social change in France that lasted from 1789 to 1799. It was a series of events that led to the end of the absolute monarchy and the feudal system, and changed the country's political landscape. One of its symbols was the Phrygian cap, as depicted on Marianne, the artistic personification of the Free French Republic. The Phrygian cap is also known as the Liberty cap, so very fitting for a nation whose motto is Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, which translates to liberty, equality, fraternity. It has its origins in the ancient world and could be made out of wool or soft leather. During the period of the Revolution, known as the Reign of Terror, these Phrygian caps were knitted by women sitting beside the guillotine, who supposedly continued knitting between the executions. How gory! Today, the Phrygian cap still holds great power as a symbol of liberty in modern France. Here it is depicted on a coin minted from 1962 to 2001. This July 2024, we had the Olympics in Paris, and the French put on a great show. You may have noticed all these red cushions on various commentary sofas, and it took me a while to realise that they weren't soft furnishings, but were actually the mascots. They look a little weird when turned into plushies, but when you see them on the heads of sports fans, they make a lot more sense. Here's a more exuberant expression of political activism. The suffragettes fought for women's rights to vote in the United Kingdom in the early 20th century. Their methods of direct action and civil disobedience were very disruptive and violent. They knew that to keep public opinion on their side, they had to embrace conventional and classically feminine styles. Fashion can be a very powerful means of communication, and the suffragettes wanted to avoid accusations of eccentricity or masculinity. By wearing the stylish Edwardian picture hats of the day, adorned with bows, flowers and feathers, they aligned themselves with Edwardian ideals of femininity. The suffragettes even created a brand identity using 3 distinctive colours: purple, white and green, representing loyalty, dignity, purity and hope. They wore white dresses on their marches so that the green and purple stood out. They looked like an army in uniform. The Times reported in 1908, every woman walking in the procession wore the purple, white and green either in favours pinned to the breast or in the trimmings of a hat, in belt ribbons or in shoulder sashes. Unfortunately, colour photography was not prevalent at the time, so we will have to imagine the riot of greens and purples against the white dresses. All these outfit choices are genius. It's much easier and cheaper to trim a hat yourself than to modify or buy a whole new dress, meaning women from across all classes could participate. The gigantic size of picture hats of the time provided the perfect canvas for political expression. If you were affluent enough to afford a new hat, you could go to Derry and Tom's on Kensington High Street and get yourself a stunning model made up in the distinguishing colours of any organisation. Here is an advertisement from them promoting a window display to do with the women's suffrage movement. 20th century political culture was certainly more creative in the United States compared to the UK. As a Brit, I had no idea that hats play such an important role in American political self-expression. As early as the mid-1800s, Americans were expressing their voting intentions by tying silk ribbons with their candidates' names printed on them around their hat bands. In the 1960s and 70s, this morphed into more mass-produced products such as straw boaters, which, to my surprise, were actually made of polystyrene imprinted with a straw weave pattern. I guess this makes sense, a new material for a new age, but also cheap to mass produce and easy to cover in paper banners and pin badges. Soon polystyrene gave way to plastic in the form of Lyndon B. Johnson's Texan Stetson with a big silver initial badge on the front. I am sure that my American viewers will be able to educate me more on the history of American convention hats, but for my part, I thought I'd take a quick look at the types of novelty DIY hats worn by people at these conventions. I find these quite similar to the fun novelty hats worn to the Kentucky Derby. You can view my commentary video on this, which I'll link to in the top right. The symbol of the Republican Party is the elephant, and what I love about these two ladies is that they've clearly taken some lovely straw hats that they already had and accessorized them with some plastic elephant figurines. They're also clearly thinking about matching their hats to their outfits, the lady on the left having gone for a teal and beige theme, and on the right a purple and white one. The hat on the left is a plate or platter hat, a very popular style at the time. On the right, I can only describe this as an expressive, swooshy, upturned brim style. In addition to the elephant, there is a ribbon of deep purple velvet and elegant silk organza roses. A similar style of roses is quite simple to make by hand without any specific flower tools, and I've got a video on this which I'll link to right up here. The Democrat Party symbol is a donkey. Why is it elephants and donkeys? Can someone please tell me about this in the comments below? I don't think these hats are as sophisticated as the Republican ones, but they are still so much fun. The gentleman is clearly wearing a paper hat, which he's stuck a figurine to. I would call this the cheap and cheerful option. And the lady on the right has sewn on a soft toy donkey. I'm not sure what the significance of the pink orchid and the bird is. This seems a little bit random to me. But the overall hat shape is lovely. It's a sewn straw plait conical shape with the edge upturned at the back. And of course, this tradition of signalling political party alignment continues today, but in a world of cheap manufacture and mass production, the personalisation of political merchandise seems to have fallen by the wayside. I would say modern political hats are now a tribal symbol of collective belonging rather than an individual form of artistic self-expression. Before I go on about modern political hats, I'd like to declare that this is not a political propaganda video. I am not for or against any political party or candidate. I do, however, think it is important that you get out and exercise your democratic right to vote for whichever party or candidate you want to. In 2016, the American election became very partisan. You had the Trump supporters on one side, sporting their infamous red MAGA caps, and you had the protesters against Trump on the other side, wearing their self-knitted pink pussy hats. Now, what I find interesting about these two hats is how different the approach to manufacturing was. The red caps featuring embroidery are cheap and easy to mass produce. The basic 6-panel crown with a peak is a versatile style already popular in the USA, so selling these is easy to an audience who probably has a collection of various caps already. However, at the moment in 2024, the official MAGA cap retails for $50. In my opinion, that is quite a steep price for a mass-produced item, making it less accessible for the less well-off in society to participate in the group fashion. The pink pussy hats started as a post-election art project. The construction is a simple pink rectangle, the corners of which perk up into cat-like ears when worn. The DIY nature of this protest hat aligns with the long tradition of feminist art reclaiming traditional crafts as a political statement. I love how this hat is accessible and creates a sense of community through making it yourself. On the Pussy Hat Project website, you can find instructions to create it via knitting, crocheting, and even sewing. And my particular favourite note accompanying some instructions was where to share but don't sell. This speaks to the community building and handmade nature of this project, which contrasts with the buy, pro-capitalist attitude of the MAGA cap. One of America's biggest exports is its culture, so no surprise that election merch has reached the UK. This year's July election saw the release of merchandise from both the Conservative and Labour parties. Now, I must admit I did not see any of this stuff out and about in the wild, and I only came across its existence when researching for this video. But nonetheless, I find it interesting that the design of the merch speaks to the target demographics of each party. Labour, who usually target the youth vote, have opted for a bright red bucket hat with the word Labour embroidered onto it. Gen Z is driving the bucket hat trend, however they are also the generation who was least likely to turn out to vote. It makes sense that Labour was trying to capture their attention with demographically appropriate merchandise. The Conservatives are at the other end of the spectrum, typically targeting the pensioner vote. I wouldn't call their 6-panel baseball cap appealing to that age bracket. However, I can picture it on the head of a nouveau riche yuppie on the golf course or wearing it whilst driving in an open-top car down a British country lane. And that concludes my foray into hats as political symbols. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more hat videos. I hope you've enjoyed this historical look at propaganda hats, and please do take this video as a little bit of fun rather than any serious political commentary. Do go out there and vote to participate in your democracy, and I will see you next time. Bye!